Calling to order the meeting of the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency. This is September 13th, 2023. Will you please join me in the salute to the flag? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May we have the roll call, please?
Director Engler?
Here.
Director Huffer?
Yes.
Director Newman?
Here.
Vice Chair Nichols?
Yes.
Chair Skay?
Here. Do we have any presentations or announcements this evening? No. All right. Let's go on to public comments. Ms. Hagan?
Yes, thank you, Chair Skay. I'm Elaine Hagan of Thousand Oaks, representing the Conejo Open Space Foundation. You each have a flyer to give you the information about our upcoming Native Plant Palooza and EcoFest. This is the second year that the foundation has sponsored and put together this event. And it's going to be on October 7th from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Conejo Creek North Lakeside Pavilion area. We're going to have a lot of wonderful exhibitors, including COSCA, which is good, CRPD Outdoor Unit, beekeepers, butterfly, bird, and reptile experts, the Conejo Valley Garden Club and Botanic Garden, a native plant landscape architect, Cayugas Water District, Cal American Water, and on and on and on. We're thrilled with the number of exhibitors we'll have. And so more details will be available at cosf.org/news. It's our most current news item. And those of you who receive our newsletter, will find an article about it as well. So I hope that we see all of you there. And please pass the word.
Sounds fantastic. I plan to be there, Elaine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go on our consent calendar, and although I'd like a motion to remove item B for regular consideration.
So moved?
All right. Do we have a second?
Yes, second.
All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Well, that leaves us with just item A, approval of minutes of May 10. So do we have a motion for the minutes?
So moved.
Okay.
I'll second that as well.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And no nays. Great. Then we'll go on to action items, and we will take up item 5B, which is an ordinance second reading. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. On this item, I'm just asking for a specific motion to approve the second reading. There's not a staff report. This item was presented at the last meeting. I just wanted to make it clear that on the consent calendar, the motion was to approve the second reading.
Okay. So we need a second motion then, or are we good?
I'm just asking for a motion to approve the
Okay.
second reading
All right.
of ordinance 001-2023.
I would move that we approve the reading.
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That carries. We'll go to our regular action items. First one is to establish
Chair,
signature.
just one moment, if we could get the clerk to read the ordinance.
title.
Oh.
Sorry. An ordinance of the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency, COSCA, amending Section 238, Chapter 2 of the COSCA Rules and Regulations Ordinance Manual regarding bicycles to allow Class 1 electric bicycles on COSCA open space.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 6A is to establish signature authorities for contracts and settlements.
Madam Chair, members of the board, the item before you is, as mentioned, establishing signature authorities for COSCA contracts. The COSCA Joint Powers Agreement for the Conejo Open Space Conservation Agency authorizes the agency to, among many things, make and enter into contracts. In practice and in the joint powers agreement, we comply with this by adhering to the procurement and contracting policies of the city of Thousand Oaks. And in practice, we do that because most of COSCA's regular funding is, comes through the city. However, the Woolsey Fire Recovery Funds are under the direct control of the COSCA Board of Directors, and there's not currently an established signature authority resolution to guide contracting for projects utilizing these funds. Establishing such a resolution provides clarity on authorities and will guide staff during the contracting process. Proposed resolution 2023-01 establishes contracting authority for the COSCA Board of Directors and COSCA's 2 chief administrative officers, which are the city manager and designee and the general manager of the Conejo Recreation and Park District. The resolution provides authority for either of the co-chief administrative officers to sign contracts with a value of up to $75,000 when the funding has been previously appropriated by the COSCA Board of Directors. For contracts having a value over $75,000 and contract amendments that would increase the value of an existing contract to over $75,000, signature authority will lie with the COSCA Board of Directors. Establishing contracting authority for COSCA's co-chief administrative officers is a practical concern because the COSCA Board of Directors meets only 4 times each year, and that doesn't leave much time for staff and opportunities for staff to seek approval of every contract. The Joint Powers Agreement also states that the contracting power is subject only to the restrictions upon the manner of exercising that power as are imposed upon the city in the exercise of similar powers. Thousand Oaks City Council has approved contracting authority for their chief administrative officer, which is the city manager, in the amount of $75,000. So the resolution before you represents the limits available to COSCA. So the recommendation from staff is to approve resolution 2023-01 and make a finding that this action is not a project as defined under the California Environmental Quality Act. With that, I am available for any questions.
Questions of Mr. Stark? Yes, Director Nichols.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one question, and this really goes back to the formation of the joint agency. My understanding of the Joint Powers Agency formation process is you kind of take the pros, hopefully not so much the cons, of the 2 agencies, and you can kind of benefit from that by creating this marriage between the 2. But I noticed that, which is, as Mr. Stark pointed out, says upon the city's process of exercise. Was that just a conscious decision in the formation of the agency? There's nothing that requires that within the formation process. It was just a choice that was made on how the agency would move forward?
I believe that was a choice. I'm interpreting the document, of course, but the treasurer of COSCA under the Joint Powers Agreement is the director of finance at the city. So the city is in charge of COSCA's finances. So it logically follows from there that we follow the procurement policies and financial policies of the city.
Okay, yeah, I have no objections to that. I just was curious as to how it was all formulated, put together. Obviously, in instances like tonight where we actually have something we need to address that maybe wasn't addressed at the time, it evolves over time, but appreciate that. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. That was it.
And as maybe Mr. Duran can correct me, but it was my impression that under the Joint Powers Act, the entity, the newly formed entity, has to choose one of the other entities to use their administrative powers. In other words, are you operating under the rules of the municipality or under the rules of the special districts? And that was sort of at the outset, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, Mr. Heffer.
Just clarification in the discussion, you refer to appropriating funds from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund and the authority for $75,000, but in my reading of the resolution, this would be 75,000 would be for any funds in COSCA, whether or not it's from the Woolsey Recovery Fund?
I'll have to look at the staff report, or that, do you have a copy of the resolution handy there, Noel? Is it specific to Woolsey? Because I believe it is. I think the intent of the resolution was to clarify the contracting authority for use of the Woolsey funds, because the city budgeted funds for COSCA follow the city's process, and we have all the contracting approved through the city's administrative officers. So it was really only for COSCA that for the funds for which the city does not have control, and that the COSCA board has control over, to have an analogous process.
So this is just then for funds in the Woolsey.
Yeah, the resolution isn't specific to that fund, but it only relates to those funds that are COSCA specific, right? Not the funds from the city or CRPD that are contributions to COSCA.
So for example, another source of funds would be like cell tower revenue that's on the COSCA land. I think we get a little bit of cell tower revenue.
Most of that, I believe, goes into a fund, though, that is still ultimately controlled by the city, the COSCA Trust Fund. So when, I think the Woolsey, I think to get to the heart of what Director Hupper is asking is it just about the Woolsey Fund? Well, it's about the funds that the COSCA board has control over, and today, those are the only funds that the COSCA board has control over. Does that make sense?
Okay. I'm wondering if the resolution should, at the very least, refer to only funds that the COSCA board has control over.
Is that what the...
Because the way I read that is that any project 75,000 or less, one of the individuals can approve that without any board action.
So the signature authority only applies to those budgeted projects that have had approval from the COSCA board through an appropriation. So for instance, there's an item later on in the agenda where you're appropriating funds for a certain project. After that approval, those types of projects would be subject to this resolution.
Okay. All right.
Does that explain
Yes.
it all, or are there further questions?
David, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I want to be sure I understand a point that you made earlier, Madam Chair, about the spending authorities. As the staff report notes, there is a discrepancy between the city CAO contracting limit of $75,000 and the CRPD limit of $60,000. And if I understood correctly, you said that we pick one, in this case, the higher of the two, and that's the
Yeah, I don't know if I was just speaking more generally that the body elects, when it's formed, decides which rules in general.
you have one rule, not
Okay.
two rules, right? Right. That part I get. I just want to be sure we're on solid ground in doing that. And the reason I raised this is that in last night's council meeting, we spent a fair amount of time discussing the issues of policy and liability. And when there's a policy and we don't follow it, there's potential liability attached to that. And I just want to be sure that that's not the case here. That we by saying this is a joint power authority, we're picking one set of rules and following those rules. That's the policy, not that there's a discrepancy. I just want to be sure we're clear on that.
We shared those two numbers for the edification of the board. The genesis of choosing the the 75,000 was in reference to language within the joint powers agreement that states that contracting power is subject only to the restrictions upon the manner of exercising the power as are imposed upon the city in the exercise of similar powers.
So that's very
So
explicit.
we used that language to center on utilizing the city's limits.
So then COSCA's board is not encumbered by limits set by CRPD or anyone else. It's by that language.
It's the language in, yes.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Yes.
Yes,
Mr.
the
Nichols.
Director Huffer's question made me think a little bit about this process too, but I'm just trying to clarify that in the standard operations, year after year, there are budgets approved, and typically the budget that's approved is contributed 50% by the city, 50% by CRPD, and that becomes the COSCA budget to spend for that time period. And if I understand correctly, the purpose of this resolution is to identify funds that are strictly COSCA funds that neither the city or the district have authority over, but only COSCA has authority over. So I guess my question is, if you go through that budgetary process and that 50-50 arrangement has designated a certain allotment for COSCA, is that technically not within the purview of the COSCA board, that that's still under the jurisdiction of those two entities, and that this board really doesn't have authority over those funds?
That would be correct as far as my understanding. The budget for COSCA is really two budgets. The city creates a budget for their side of COSCA, and the CRPD does the same for that part. They kind of get wrapped up in a single budget that gets managed through the city. So functionally, when CRPD incurs expenses, those come in the form of invoices over to the city. The spending throughout the year is not necessarily 50-50. So at the end of the year, there's a reconciliation of those funds, and that's where the merging of the two budgets settle at the end of the year. But all the allocated funds in the budget follow through the city's financial processes. So the COSCA board itself does not have purview over the budgets, but as the ex officio members from the two agencies represented were part of those budget
Yes.
approvals.
Okay. And then, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, in this instance, since those Woolsey Fire funds were dedicated specifically to COSCA and not to the partner agencies, is that the distinction, in that those funds had the COSCA's name on it, so to speak, and so now this board has to make those decisions where in the past that's not been the case?
That's correct. This board has the appropriations power over those funds. So what the resolution does is when the COSCA board appropriates funds to a project idea, then the authority to sign the contract, if it's under 75,000, would go to Jim, general manager of CRPD, or the city's designee. That's where it kicks in.
All right, I think I'm a little more clear on that now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Chair, if I may ask for clarification, I think that the goal of the resolution is to address those funds that were not directed by the city, but the resolution itself would encompass all of the funds that COSCA is expending. So whether it previously was already clear or under practice of the city, but we're also adding the same rules to those that are not coming through the city, so that the effect of this resolution is that all appropriations from COSCA would be treated the same. Is that the purpose of the resolution, and the lack of specifying where those source of funds are within the resolution? Just to make sure that it covers all of them with the same rules?
I would concur, believe that's true.
Yeah, that's true. And it's just to cover those contracts that are specific to the entity COSCA as opposed to either the city or CRPD.
Are we ready for a motion? Any takers? Go ahead. Oh, yes, Mr. Hepburn.
I will move approval of staff recommendations 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have a second?
I'd be happy to second.
Thank you. No other discussion or questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any noes or abstentions? That carries. Thank you. Okay. Next up is a funding appropriation for Arroyo Caneo trash remediation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The item before you is a request for a funding appropriation for the removal of trash in Arroyo Conejo on COSCA property. In the fall of 2022, COSCA began work on a project to remove invasive plants from COSCA property in the Arroyo Conejo open space. And when all that biomass there was removed and the area was opened up to view, we realized that there was a lot of garbage and trash that had washed down into the river and become entrained on that site. Most of this trash is carried to the property through urban storm drainage systems and tributary streams, and originates either from urban litter and camps of unhoused individuals upstream. During high stream flows, this trash is conveyed to the natural channel of Arroyo Conejo Creek, where it gets trapped in vegetation and deposited on stream banks. Trash impacts native habitat areas by contributing pollutants to local waterways and creating dangerous conditions for wildlife. I think we've all seen those photos of, birds with
The
plastic
six-pack
hanging on them, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Removing the trash is an important part of stewarding water quality and contributing to enhanced environmental and public health on the site. At the June 24th, 2020 meeting of the COSCA board, the board approved a framework for the allocation of the funds received in the settlement for damages suffered in the Woolsey fire, and a portion of these funds was set aside in this process for enhanced land management projects. And an essential element of land management, in our case, is keeping the open space, land, and waterways clean. COSCA proposes to hire one or more contractors to conduct trash removal activities along a 1.8 mile section of Arroyo Conejo Creek between Hillcrest Drive and the Rancho Conejo playfields. This is the original scoped project area. We're not sure exactly how much it costs to remove garbage from that whole area. The project scope is limited in area and the initial budget, and it will be used to validate anticipated costs for managing trash over the entire reach of the stream on COSCA property. At this time, we're recommending a smaller investment in a pilot project to see how much does it cost to remove garbage from the creek, so we can calibrate what that long-term responsibility will look like going forward. COSCA staff recommends allocating up to $50,000 for the project. We have been in discussions with the city's sustainability department that has an additional $25,000 available in the fiscal year budget for this type of work. So we'll have a total project cost of $75,000, of which will cover $50,000. The project will result in immediate improvements to environmental quality and provide vital feedback to COSCA on projected costs to manage stream-side trash in the future. There is, of course, an opportunity to engage volunteers in long-term maintenance, but the initial project is beyond the scope really possible for volunteers at this time. And we're still in the growth phase of developing volunteer programs that could help. The project is categorically exempt from CEQA as a minor alteration of land. COSCA staff's recommendation is to find that the project is categorically exempt from CEQA and appropriate $50,000 from the Woolsey Fire Recovery Fund to allocate to removing trash along Arroyo Conejo. And with that, I'm happy to take questions.
Questions for Mr. Stark? Yes, Doug.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I just was curious, are we just talking about an overabundant collection of just trash and debris, or you're looking at large items, abandoned vehicles, mattresses, things like that? Is it?
No, we're really talking about plastic bags. There's clothing, blankets, and stuff you might find in the encampment situations. there's some, the occasional building materials that end up washing downstream, but we're not looking at, major appliances or cars
Okay.
or anything like that.
So you don't need to get any cranes or anything that.
No, this will be a human effort, but,
Okay.
yeah.
And then also, there's reference of attachment 1 with photos. I didn't have attachment 1. Was there something to have been included?
There may have intended to be.
Oh,
That
okay.
might not have been, was it not circulated? I do not have that information at hand.
Okay. Well, I can take your
But
word for it.
if you
I
can
just-
imagine what trash along the creek looks like.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen something like
Yeah,
that
I've seen
before.
a few of that.
Thank you. That's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
And Mr. Stark, are there any contractors that come to mind, or is this going to be a seek request for proposal situation?
At the size of the proposed contract, we'd be letting that would put us in, to follow the procurement procedures. We would go out and seek bids on the work.
I just wondered if you knew of any entities that actually would do that kind of work.
There's not a whole lot of groups out there pining to do this kind of work. But there are contractors that will probably consider this work, and we've reached out to the California Conservation
That's
Corps
good.
to see if, they might be an option. So we'll be looking at all available options.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other comments or
Just
questions?
a point of clarification on, this is one area that we've identified that needs to be cleaned up. Do we have other areas that, as we look forward in the future, that we need to start planning for? Or is there some other funding source that we're looking at for that?
Well, in terms of trash on open space, for the most part, we take great pride in keeping trash off of our open space, and most of it's in really great shape. This is where the problem is most acute in COSCA's open space area. This area, it's difficult with access, working down Arroyo Conejo. It's a pretty unforgiving place access-wise. The project we have proposed here is where we've been doing weed management. We have good access routes, and we can get in and do it. But we also own property for a significant stretch downstream of this area as well. So it is a larger issue for us, but I think as we just try and get our head around how we do this in terms of funding, we have some funding and through the Woolsey funds that we can do that. We also have capital improvement funds in our established budget that could be allocated to this. In all likelihood, the cost to do the full cleanup of all of our property is well beyond COSCA's resources. So we will have to prioritize areas, and we have to go into a project knowing that, we're still downstream from a very large area. So it's more of not just a one-time thing. What we'll be looking at is how do we manage trash along this reach of the creek in the long haul. We hope we'll reach a point where we're developed enough in our volunteer activities that we could involve volunteers in some aspect of this work, but there will always be a part of this work that's extremely difficult. This garbage gets hung up in trees, and it does take some particular effort to collect it.
Yeah, but one of the reasons for asking that question, I know that some of the areas upstream are flow through watershed protection district properties and have been subject to some of our unhoused folks in that area. I've got a feeling some of that washes down into our property. Has there been outreach to watershed protection district to help with some of this?
Not direct outreach to watershed protection. We are coordinating with the City of Thousand Oaks Public Works staff because they're working on areas too. And, the city has programs, to intercept trash in like our urban areas and stuff. So we're not alone in what we're doing. There have been installed some, trash rack type structures put on the upstream ends of some culverts that have had some success in interdicting some of this. But I think even those systems can get overwhelmed, and they can't put a grid too small over a culvert, or else the water doesn't get through. So it's a complicated thing. But as we will be coordinating long-term with other agencies that are also doing, we're not the only ones trying to keep, trash out of the creek. We're kind of just that last bit, before it goes into a natural area. And so that's our concern. And if we can, even if we had a zone set up where we did have good management access, we could at least be interdicting a substantial amount of it in one easily accessed area to try and keep it from getting into the areas that are less accessible.
Very, very good. In fact, I don't know if the city has, but you've seen those like along gutters, flows to ocean, keep your trash out, don't put oil down, all that. And it's almost an ongoing public education effort too, to everything and during a storm event, I mean, that's when it really gets difficult.
It can become overwhelming.
Yeah.
But not for lack of trying. There's plenty of programs going on at the city and other agencies to help.
Yeah, and if you've seen like the Bayona Creek above Marina Del Rey, I mean, that's huge. There's always been like a trash barrier, and then it has to be physically removed, and there's some new system. It's like almost a robot, a floating device that's collecting, but it's just so discouraging to see all the stuff that gets caught in that net.
It certainly is.
That's a much bigger watershed it's draining,
Yeah.
of course.
Yes,
Much
yes.
bigger, much more urban too.
Yeah, if I come back later asking for a robot, you'll know why.
Yeah, okay. All right. So if no other questions, what's the board's, yes, Director Newman.
I would be willing to move item 6B, both items.
Okay. 1 and 2?
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No nays or abstentions. Thank you. Next up is a review of the 2024 meeting dates and establish the days, time, and place for the regular meetings for the COSCA Board of Directors.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. This item is indeed to review 2024 meeting dates and establish times and dates. Normally, we do this at our November meeting, but I'll start reading through here. COSCA's Joint Powers Agreement requires that the Board of Directors hold at least 4 regular meetings each year, and that the board establish the days, times, and place of the regular meetings by resolution. They were most recently established as the second Wednesday of February, May, September, and November in Resolution 2022-07 that was approved last November 9th in 2022. Historically, the schedule for regular COSCA board meetings has evolved as a function of board member availability and the quantity of items requiring board review and or approval. For the 2024 calendar year, Vice Chair Nichols has requested consideration of moving the regular COSCA board meetings to either the first or third Wednesday of February, May, September, and November to accommodate his service on another board. The staff report in your board package lists 2024 dates that correspond with the first, second, and third Wednesdays for board meetings of those months. Staff is requesting direction from the board regarding the desired regular meeting dates. If the board requests that the regular meeting dates be changed, a resolution establishing the new meeting dates will be prepared for the board's consideration at the November meeting. So it's up.
All right. Questions? Board's desire?
Well, I know from my perspective, pretty much can make meetings if we get enough warning on when meetings are. I know that I do have a February 7th conflict, but other than that, I can make any meeting in February.
Okay. Yes, Director Hubbard.
Personally, I don't have any problem with either the first or the third. My only possible concern, if you're going with the third Wednesday, that the November meetings may on occasion or regularly bump up against Thanksgiving.
I think we looked at the calendar for next year to look at, that we thought that the November 3rd Thursday wouldn't, or third Wednesday wouldn't conflict with Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we didn't put fourth Thursday on the list, because we just thought that for sure probably wouldn't work. But we'll leave it up.
And can I clarify, so this establishing the regular meeting schedule is required, but if you did have to cancel, you could always hold a special meeting, could you not?
Conceivably, yes.
Okay, you do have that flexibility.
I think the intent here was just to find a regular date
Right.
that people could meet that could accommodate. Yeah.
Just to confirm, thank you for the consideration, but either the first or the third Wednesdays would be better for me.
I'm agnostic. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Doug, I'm fine with the third Wednesday.
Should be used to that by now.
Doug, I'm good with the third Wednesday, so
Okay.
if we want to just,
That's fine for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Well, do we need a motion, or is
Or is this
board
just
feedback plenty?
No, I think we've received the direction that
Okay,
we're
and you'll go back
requesting, and
and
we'll bring back a resolution at the next meeting
Okay.
to confirm that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And information items, there's a COSCA Volunteer Corps activity, and I think that was distributed via email. But Ranger Operations and Maintenance, Mr. Kuba.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. We're going to talk about what's been happening through the summertime. I'm going to say it's been weeds, but the pictures will be hopefully mostly things without weeds.
All weeds all the time.
We had a wonderful Eagle Scout project rebuilding the shade structure in the inner lot and the picnic table at the inner lot at Wildwood. It ended up being more than an Eagle Scout project, so it got the Rangers involved in re-roofing it, and the Scouts worked primarily on the bench. Really great job, hot day. The Rangers got pulled off to 2 incidents in the park during that time, but they muscled through. A little bit of interesting history about that inner lot shade structure. Those posts that you see on the outer side there, those are old soccer posts from Canal Creek South from the 80s that Ranger Kevin recovered back in that time and repurposed them. So they've been up there for all that time.
The lights were right.
New roof on it, refinished all the wood. It's just a fantastic project, something to be really proud of. And hopefully it's up there for another 35, 40 years.
That's great.
I wanted to talk about the hurricane that we had and how well we muscled through it. We had enough warning, so all the trucks were preloaded with stuff. We pre-closed all of open space. We went through and warned the unhomed people, as did the Ventura County Sheriff. They flew through twice, and we did very well. What was wonderful is it dried up really quickly, even though we had 3.5 inches. But we did have some damage, and a lot of trees did fall, mostly big branches. And that's continuing to happen. A lot of the trees picked up a lot of water during that, and the branches are very heavy right now. So even in the urban parks, we've been losing branches. The other bad thing about it, I do have to say the weed word, is we've got a new carpet of green out there, so we're scared.
No rest for the weary.
Right. Congratulations to Ranger Rick. He was recognized by CRPD for Parks and Recreation Month, which is put on by the National Recreation and Parks Association. So he got a very cool little desktop plaque and lots of handshakes from us and the Rangers. So it's a fun morning for him. I didn't have a good how did it get an open space picture, but there was a car in open space. I got there after the car was towed out, and it took out the entire fence. We're going to be replacing that with 2-rail fence, a little bit more natural looking and more in tune with our style instead of the chain link, and that's at the west end of Avenida de los Flores. But that should be coming up pretty soon. I'm really glad to get rid of chain link fence, get to things that wildlife can get through. And that's a short one because I didn't want to talk about weeds, but this is the moonrise from a week or so ago from the top of Hillcrest Center.
Beautiful photo.
Yeah, it was a wonderful
That's
shot.
great.
I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Questions of Mr. Kuba? No? Okay, carry on.
I shall,
Very
and so
good.
shall they.
All right, do we have updates from our CRP general manager and city manager?
No.
No update?
Nothing.
No update? Okay. Board member comments? Yes, Director Nichols.
Just one thing I wanted to mention, and maybe you can help me remember what the occasion was, but for the California Association of Recreation and Park Districts, we had a annual conference in Yosemite, and one of the awardees was Tim Hagel.
Oh, great.
For the efforts that he's done, which, although that's more recreation oriented, I know he has roots here in COSCA, so I thought it might be of interest,
Absolutely.
and maybe you can explain more about what
Yeah,
that's
it
all
actually
about.
was for the Conejo Conservation Corps, which is the group of kids he's having meet with the rangers once every other month or once a month? Once every other month. And they're actually doing physical, good work out in the park. So he's growing that program, and I think he's hoping to do like 2 groups in the future. So right now, I think it's a group of 12 young teens that might not otherwise be engaged in open space activities. So yeah, he got recognized for that. It was really
That's
neat.
great.
That was it. That was it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Just a
Yes.
couple of small things. It is the small things. I was walking the Santa Rosa Trail the other day, went by the bell box, full of bells for the cyclists. It's a little thing, but I think people really appreciate it. The second thing was, in my neighborhood, we had a Fire Safe Council meeting, and was well attended. 28 residents in the area came to that, and we've set up a committee to form our own Fire Safe Council.
Oh, excellent.
So if you have anyone, and we've had a good relationship with COSCA and the Fire Safe Council, if there's other neighborhoods that you can think of that would be interested in setting up Fire Safe Council, there is a benefit insurance-wise for folks who are up against the open space. You can use that as leverage to lower your insurance rates. So it's a good way to go about things, and please contact Fire Safe Council if you're in a neighborhood in Thousand Oaks or Westlake that
Mm-hmm.
would like to form there and become more safe.
Very good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, fire safe councils are great. And I'll put in another plug for defensiblespace.org, which has a lot of good tips. Okay, any other board comments? All right. We have a closed session tonight. Would you like to read us into the closed session?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Before we adjourn to closed session, just like to report that there's only the one item that's listed in the agenda to be discussed, and that is in 2 parts. It's to discuss the initiation of litigation, 2 cases. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Will we be going into the other room? All right. For adjournment, or should I do that? Okay. we're back in open session. Mr. Doran, would you read us back?
Yes, thank you, Chair. There was one item discussed with two cases. All members were present and able to participate. In the first case, the board provided unanimous direction, including the authority to initiate an action. Further, the action, the defendants, and the other particulars shall, once formally commenced, be disclosed to any persons upon inquiry, unless to do so would jeopardize COSCA's ability to effectuate service of process on one or more unserved parties, or that to do so would jeopardize its ability to conclude existing settlement negotiations to its advantage. With regard to the second case, all members were present and able to participate, and the board provided unanimous direction. There's no further reportable action at this time. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we will adjourn to our next regular meeting, which is November 8th to 2023. Thank you all.